Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Nick from Australia. Tonight's video on the channel is going to be my South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade. So from 2010 to 2020, the South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade. I'm going to be doing the team of the decade for each 16 NRL clubs in the coming days, and it'll probably take a week to get through each club, but I'm going to do a team of the decade on every NRL club. But before I get into the South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade, I just want to give a shout out to Always Brisbane Broncos. He is a YouTuber. He is a Brisbane Broncos supporter. It's a Broncos page, but he does a lot of NRL content as well, and he's going to be uploading a fair bit this year. So go and subscribe to Always Brisbane Broncos. But let's get into tonight's video. The South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade from 2010 to 2020. Now, this was a very difficult list to put together. There's been so many great players at South Sydney from 2010 to 2020. Don't get upset with me in the comments below. Don't call me, an effing, swear at me and go off your head in the comments below. This is just my personal opinion, and it was very tough to put together, but I've come up with my 1 to 17 South side, and I'm going to go through it now, and we're going to go through some of the players. So we'll go through the team now. Fullback, Greg Inglis. On the wings, Alex Johnson and Nathan Merritt. In the centres, Bo Champion and Bryson Goodwin. In the halves, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds. The front row, Roy Asatasi and Jason Clark. The hooker, Isaac Luke. The second row of John Sutton and Chris Mcqueen. The lock, Sam Burgess. And on the interchange bench, Tom and George Burgess, Michael Crocker and Ben Teo. That is the South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade and the coach of the decade for South Sydney. It's a very tough one, but I would go with Michael Maguire because he got Souths their first premiership, and when Michael Maguire came in at South Sydney in 2012, I think it was, he took over. They made it to the preliminary final, and in 2013 they made it to the preliminary final, and then in 2014 they won the comp, and then I think he was sacked at the end of 2017. So I think Michael Maguire is probably the coach of the decade for South Sydney. But excuse me, bloody burping around here. But anyway, let's get into it. So I've got Greg Inglis at fullback. I think that's a no-brainer. Definitely the best fullback for Souths in the last decade. A lot of people would say Reece Wesser, but he retired, I think, 2011, 2012. So he was always going to be hard to make the team of the decade. But if you have a look what Inglis did at Souths, when he left Melbourne at the end of 2010, he went to South in 2011, and Inglis just went to a whole new level. Went to play fullback, played very well, got South their first premiership at fullback. He was in great form when he did that, and I think Greg Inglis is a no-brainer. So he, obvious reasons, Greg Inglis is the best fullback of the decade for South Sydney. The wingers, Alex Johnson and Nathan Merritt. Alex Johnson's been there for a very long time now. He's a South Sydney junior. He's going to go down as one of the best wingers of South Sydney when his career's all over. He's going to be up there. I think he'll be in the conversation as one of the best wingers that Souths have ever had. And he's a consistent try scorer. He's a very underrated player. And I think he'll go down as a South Sydney legend. And I think Alex Johnson in this list here is an absolute no-brainer as well. And the other winger is Nathan Merritt, a very proud Indigenous winger, a bit like Alex Johnson. Very consistent, a very good player. Nathan Merritt didn't do too good at State of Origin level, but he only played, I think, the one game at Origin. But as for at South Sydney, Nathan Merritt, what a great career he had at South Sydney. A very consistent winger, always reliable, always did the job for Souths. And I think Alex Johnson and Nathan Merritt, they're probably the easiest spots to pick for the wingers for South. So I think those two on the wing is absolute no-brainer. In the centres, Bo Champion and Bryson Goodwin. Now, having a look at the South Sydney centre position over the last 10 years, very hard to pick. There wasn't a lot of standouts here, but I think Bryson Goodwin's a standout. He was fantastic at South Sydney when he was playing in the centres. He was absolutely fantastic. And the other one was Bo Champion. Now, Bo Champion played for a couple of clubs, but when Bo Champion was at South Sydney, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And, I think if you have a look at all the centres that are available for South Sydney, you get the likes of Dylan Walker who were there, Dylan Farrell. But I think I think both Champion and Bryson Goodwin are probably a fair choice for this position in the centres, and there isn't a whole lot of guys to choose from here, but I think both Champion and Bryson Goodwin are probably a fair selection for the centre position the last decade. For South Sydney, the halves, Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds. Now, Cody Walker could be a bit of a controversial one. Some people think Luke Keary should be up there because he won the premiership with Souths in 2014, but I just feel like Cody Walker, I think he's done a bit better than Luke Keary. I know Luke Keary won a comp there, but Cody Walker's been brilliant at South Sydney. He's been playing for South his whole career, and I know he didn't come onto the scene until probably late 2016, 2017 as a real good South player. But if you ever look at Cody Walker over the years at South, he's been very consistent, absolutely fantastic, and I think Cody Walker deserves to be the best 5'8" for the decade for South Sydney. But you could argue John Sutton, but I've got John Sutton in the back row, which we'll get to soon. And the halfback, Adam Reynolds, absolute no-brainer. I think Chris Sandow was the halfback before Adam Reynolds, and then Adam Reynolds came in, I think, 2011 or something. I think that was his first full year at South. So I think Adam Reynolds, it's a no-brainer. There's no one else to really pick from here. So Walker and Reynolds, they're the halves of the decade for South Sydney. The front row of Roy Asotasi and Jason Clark. Now, Roy Asotasi was a really good player for the Rabbitohs. Very consistent rugby league player. Great front rower. Always did the hard yards for Souths and always did a good job. He's a Souths legend. And having a look at all the other front row contenders for Souths here, I think Roy Asotasi is a fair pick. I think he deserves to be in the starting side for South Sydney here. And the other one is Jason Clark. He played for South Sydney for about over 10 years or so. Big Jason Clark. He's gone over to Warrington now, but his career at South Sydney was fantastic. And, he always played well for Souths. He was very underrated, and I thought he did a good job as well. So, Roy Asotasi and Jason Clark are the front rowers for South Sydney. The hooker is Isaac Luke. Now, you could argue Damien Cook, but Isaac Luke was at South Sydney for a very long time. I think he was there for about 7-8 years until he was released to another club. I think he ended up going to the Warriors, Isaac Luke. So, if you have a look at Damien Cook, he's only been there since, when did Damien Cook go to Souths? 2017 or something. So, I think Isaac Luke definitely deserves to be the hooker position. He's been there a bit longer than Cookie, and I think Isaac Luke's a fair pick here in the hooker position. The back row of John Sutton and Chris Mcqueen. Now, John Sutton is a South Sydney junior. He's a one-club player. He's a legend of South Sydney, and he played his whole career at South Sydney, played absolutely fantastic at the Rabbitohs. He's a very loyal player, very underrated, very consistent. And I think John Sutton definitely is a no-brainer here. He's probably one of the first 3 or 4 picked in the South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade. So, John Sutton pretty much picks himself here. The other back row is Chris Mcqueen. Now, Chris Mcqueen, he played State of Origin for Queensland. When he was playing at South Sydney, he played very well for Queensland when he was there. And at South Sydney, Chris Mcqueen was quite underrated. I think he played over 150 games for the Rabbitohs and always did a good job at South. So I think Chris Mcqueen definitely deserves to make this team somewhere. So I've got him in the back row. And at lock, a no-brainer. Probably the best forward to play for South Sydney in quite some time. Sam Burgess is the lock for South Sydney. Now, Sam Burgess, we all know what he did in the 2014 Grand Final, what happened to his jaw in the Grand Final, where he ran at James Graham and played with pretty much a fractured cheekbone the whole game and played absolutely unbelievable. And Sam Burgess is South Sydney Rabbitohs through and through. So it's a no-brainer. He's probably the best forward to play for Souths in the last 20 years or so. But what a player Sam Burgess was at the Rabbitohs. What a legend of the game. And he's probably the first forward picked when you talk about the Rabbitohs in the last 10 years or so. So Sam Burgess is a no-brainer. Now, on the bench, I've got Tom and George Burgess, the two twins. Now, George Burgess is no longer with South Sydney. He's gone over to Wigan. Tom Burgess is still there to this day. I think they deserve to be in the side. I know they have both had their ball handling issues over the years, dropping the ball all the time. But Tom and George Burgess, they're two legends of the Rabbitohs, and they've done a lot for the club, and they've been there for quite some time now. So I think Tom and George Burgess deserve the recognition here. So they definitely deserve to be in the 1-17 somewhere, so they make the bench. Also, Michael Crocker. A lot of people didn't like Michael Crocker as a player, but he had a great career at South Sydney when he was there. Played a bit of back row, a bit of lock. Very hard and tough player, Michael Crocker, and I think he's another guy that probably deserves to be here as well. He played for a few clubs like Melbourne as well, Michael Crocker did, but a very hard and tough player Michael Crocker was, and I think he deserves to be in this team somewhere, so he makes the bench. And the last one I've gone with is Ben Teo. Now, Ben Teo is a bit of a tough one, but having a look at what Ben Teo did in the 2014 final series for South Sydney, especially in that preliminary final where they played the big rivals, the Sydney Roosters, or the Eastern Suburbs, whatever you want to call them. But Ben Teo, in that preliminary final where Roosters led 12-0 against South, Ben Teo just went absolutely nuts. Scored a great try, and he just absolutely destroyed the Roosters in that game. But having a look at his career at South Sydney, Ben Teo, I thought he played very well at Souths, and there's a couple other players you could consider for this spot, but I think Ben Teo deserves to be in this team somewhere. And like I said, Michael Maguire probably deserves to be the coach of the decade for the Rabbitohs. You know, there's a lot of players that miss out on this list, but it's hard to pick a team of the decade. But I think that's a pretty good team of the decade for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and I think I've done well with this list anyway. But you guys let me know in the comment section below if there's anyone I have forgotten, is anyone that you think should be on this list. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up tonight's video. That's my South Sydney Rabbitohs team of the decade. If you enjoyed tonight's video, make sure you guys go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to support the channel, if you want to donate to the channel via PayPal, there is a link in the description below. Feel free to do so. I don't really care if you do, but it's up to you guys anyway. But anyway, that's going to wrap up tonight's video. This has been Nick from Australia. Thanks for watching tonight, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.